Independent Commissioner for Children's Services in Rotherham in 2014, and Gary Ridgway, a former senior police officer with Cambridgeshire Police, to carry out the assurance review. Both are highly respected in their field, and their independence, objectivity and impartiality are without question. In response to the Mayor's Commission, the independent review team produced 3 reports into historic child sexual exploitation in Manchester, Oldham and Rochdale, which highlighted multiple failures and have led directly to systems improvements, of which I'll say more later. It was, however, clear from the outset that the review the Mayor was able to commission had limitations. He has no statutory power to establish such a review, and that absence of statutory powers became increasingly an issue as the review process proceeded. Individuals could not be compelled to give an account of their actions to the independent review team, while legal restrictions on sharing information meant long delays while information sharing agreements were negotiated. Baroness Louise Casey's recent national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse, commissioned by the Home Secretary in January this year, has highlighted similar concerns. There were also concerns expressed by the Crown Prosecution Service and Greater Manchester Police about what information in relation to live cases could be shared to avoid compromising criminal investigations and potential prosecutions. Nonetheless, the 3 reports published by the independent review team have led to improvements in practice. In March 2021, Greater Manchester Police established its child sexual exploitation major investigations team, highlighted in the report published by His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services today, as the only one of its kind and at this scale, to their knowledge, anywhere in the country. HMICFRS have also highlighted the introduction of victim care packs by Greater Manchester Police and the use of serious organised crime methodology to investigate child sexual exploitation as innovative practice. And the 3 reports by the independent review team and the establishment of the major investigations team have also delivered results for survivors. HMICFRS reports that in total, the major investigations team and earlier child sexual exploitation multi-victim or multi-offender investigations have resulted in 42 convictions and over 430 years imprisonment of offenders. Earlier this year, in response to Baroness Casey's review, the Home Secretary announced a national inquiry with statutory powers that will address the limitations we experienced in Greater Manchester and hold individuals to account for their past decisions and actions. Baroness Casey told the Home Affairs Select Committee last month that it had not initially been her intention to recommend a national inquiry, but it was the representations made personally to her by the Mayor that led her to do so. We welcome the Home Secretary's announcement and look forward to hearing more details of the national inquiry process. Faced with the limitations in our process, however, and following the publication of the reports into historic child sexual exploitation in Manchester, Oldham and Rochdale, the Mayor and I had to consider how we could ensure that the second part of his remit for the independent review process, to give assurance about the fitness of current arrangements to protect children in Greater Manchester from abuse, could be fulfilled. We gave extremely careful consideration to that question and had helpful discussions with Malcolm Newson and Gary Ridgway about it. As a result, last year, the Mayor invited the 3 independent inspectorates, His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services, Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission to carry out the final part of the assurance process. Their statutory powers have avoided the legal difficulties around information sharing. The Mayor and I want to thank the 3 inspectorates who worked together and with us to develop a novel methodology for assessing our whole system approach and the effectiveness of our child safeguarding partnership arrangements across Greater Manchester. There was no model in place to follow for a combined authority-wide assessment, and the Mayor and I are very grateful for the way in which the inspectorates have put together an independent, rigorous and comprehensive process to provide the assurance and insights that we sought. The result is an exceptionally informative and detailed set of reports and recommendations which we will use to continue to drive improvements and standards across our system so that we can be assured that we are and will remain the very best we can be for children. We hope that other combined authorities and indeed national government will consider the model that's been developed here and whether it can be applied more widely. As a result of the reports published today, the Mayor and I can now provide a strong assurance that our arrangements in Greater Manchester are significantly improved from what existed in the past. But today, I know it's said by some that nothing has changed. In response, I'm able to say that our Greater Manchester system, encompassing our local authority children's services, Greater Manchester Police and our health services, worked together to protect children from abuse. Greater Manchester Police, under the leadership of Sir Stephen Watson, has made substantial progress, acknowledged in HMICFRS's report and acknowledged by our stakeholders, including the National Association of People Abused as Children. But we also acknowledge that we can and must improve further, and we will implement every single one of the recommendations in the reports from the inspectorates. The Chief Constable and the Chief Executive of the Combined Authority will say more about how we will do that in a moment. There is, however, one other matter I want to raise this morning. I want to confront head-on those who've suggested that our review process, specifically the review of historic CSE in Oldham, was a cover-up. The independent review team's report into child sexual exploitation in Oldham was different from the other 2 reports in that it was commissioned by the Mayor at the request of the then leader of Oldham Council to address allegations of abuse between 2011 and 2014, and that determined its terms of reference. Nonetheless, I have absolutely no doubt that the review carried out by the independent review team was scrupulous, rigorous and in no sense a cover-up. And despite the delineation of that review set out in the terms of reference, I am firmly of the view that had the independent review team identified evidence of abuse beyond the scope of their review, they would have followed that evidence wherever it led and fully exposed it. I am also absolutely clear that the Mayor himself would never tolerate any cover-up. In conclusion, I want to offer some thank yous to the independent review team who provided us with the compelling reports into child sexual exploitation in Rochdale, Oldham and Manchester, which led to significant improvements in practice. I repeat my thanks to the 3 inspectorates for their professionalism and the detailed reports they have presented to us. I'm also grateful to the independent stakeholder group who offered their advice and insights to support the inspectors. I also want to recognise the dedicated, determined and committed staff working on the front line confronting this heinous and hideous offending, and the joint working that lies at the heart of the positive assessment we've received today. Over the past 18 months, I've visited all 10 of our complex safeguarding teams across Greater Manchester to see that for myself. And I pay tribute to all of our colleagues across children's services, education, health, parenting services, psychologists, youth justice services, Greater Manchester Police and the wider criminal justice system for their commitment to keeping children safe and bringing those who harm children to justice. I'm particularly pleased that HMICFRS in their report, have also recognised the hard work of those staff. But most of all, my thoughts today are for the children we failed, the survivors for whom in the past we could not give that assurance. We cannot undo the wrong you suffered, but we are determined that no child will ever again be failed as you were failed so badly. And so today we make this commitment to every child in Greater Manchester who experiences this vile form of abuse. You will be listened to, taken seriously and protected. And the perpetrators of these horrific crimes will face justice. As a Greater Manchester system, that is the promise that together we make to you today. I'm now going to hand over to the Chief Executive of the Combined Authority, Caroline Simpson, who is going to speak a little more about how we intend to take forward the Inspectorate's recommendations.
Thank you and good morning. So I'm here today in my capacity as Chair of the Greater Manchester Safeguarding Alliance. The Alliance brings together the statutory children's safeguarding partners, which are the 10 Greater Manchester Council Chief Executives, the Chief Executive of Greater Manchester NHS, the Chief Constable, together with myself, the Deputy Mayor, and the 10 Directors of Children's Services. As the Deputy Mayor has said, the reports published this morning represent a holistic assessment of the statutory system which exists in Greater Manchester for addressing child sexual exploitation today. That system, encompassing our local authority children's services, Greater Manchester Police and Health Services, brings together the different disciplines, professions and institutions needed to protect children from the most appalling and horrific abuse. And it is that joint working that lies at the heart of the positive assessment we have received today. The reports published this morning demonstrate that we have been learning from past mistakes for some time. They describe our multi-agency peer review programme, which sits within the Safeguarding Alliance arrangement as a unique regional multi-agency collaboration, which helps reduce the risk of child exploitation. Indeed, they highlight the programme as innovative practice. The programme, introduced in 2018, has continued to evolve since then and will be further enhanced by the Inspector's recommendations, which we welcome. It was reassuring that inspectors identified many areas of good practice which they outline in their report. The pivotal work of the Greater Manchester Complex Safeguarding Hub is referenced in the report. This small but experienced multi-agency team was created and is maintained by the joint financial investment of our 10 councils, NHS-GM and GMCA. In their report, Ofsted also highlight the role of the hub and the 10 local complex safeguarding teams, as referenced by the Deputy Mayor, as having a positive impact on how we are tackling child exploitation. More broadly, Ofsted conclude that the response by our 10 councils to children who are at risk of exploitation and those who are being exploited is mostly a strength. They state that underpinning this success is a cohesive strategic partnership response to the real and present dangers of extrafamilial harm, trafficking and exploitation, and they highlight much good practice. They do identify that there are areas where some local authorities can improve, and as a system, we will work together to support them to do so. We will take forward every single one of the recommendations in the reports we have received with the same commitment and determination that has been demonstrated by the transformation over the last few years as outlined by the inspectors today. This work will be overseen by the Safeguarding Alliance and indeed has already begun following earlier reports from the independent review team and from HMICFRS last year. GM leaders, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor have also asked the Safeguarding Alliance to consider how support for survivors, both of current and historic abuse, can be further embedded into our system, and to ensure the sustainability and continuous improvement of the system as a whole. This work will be crucial in ensuring that Greater Manchester has a rigorous progress of ongoing self-assurance, supported by statutory inspection processes. Context of offending continues to change, and there is always learning that emerges. As well as maintaining where we have now got to, we have to ensure that practice continues to develop even further. Most importantly, we will ensure that the system never slides back to where it was, a system that so badly let children down. I also want to thank the independent stakeholder group who supported the inspectorates. Your insights, your advice has been invaluable, and we look forward to working with you as we implement the recommendations in full, and as we continue to learn and improve, including from the national inquiry process that the government has now set in train. In concluding, I want to echo the remarks of the Deputy Mayor. All of our thoughts are with those children we let down in the past. As leaders, we are fully committed across the whole of the Greater Manchester system in always listening, always learning and always improving so that we can protect our children and ensure they thrive. I'd now like to hand over to Sir Stephen Watson, Chief Constable.
Good morning. We welcome and take encouragement from the contents of the reports published today. The exploitation of children is amongst the most abhorrent of crimes, made worse by the failures of systems, processes, and individuals to protect the vulnerable. I reiterate my apologies to those whom we have failed in the past. I am sorry that when you needed us most, we were not there for you. GMP rightly bears a very heavy responsibility to ensure that today's professional practice is fully reflective of all that has been so very painfully learned out of the suffering of children in past years. It is for this reason that I am pleased that the HMIC and other Inspectorate reports recognises the significant improvements that have been wrought within GMP, both parochially and in conjunction with our other key safeguarding partners. The report speaks to systems which are well led, well governed, well resourced, victim focused and, crucially, effective. Those who are specially charged with this most important responsibility within Greater Manchester Police and across our multi-agency collaboration are professional, knowledgeable, dedicated and determined. And I am particularly pleased that their unstinting efforts have been so positively recognised and reflected in these reports. As has been said, and of course I reiterate the point, there can, however, be no complacency at all in this regard. HMIC particularly makes some very constructive and valid recommendations which we accept entirely and will implement fully. Notwithstanding our focus on improving contemporary practice still further, we remain focused on achieving justice for those who have suffered so terribly from abuses perpetrated upon them in years gone by. On occasion, our failures from as long ago as 10 to 20 years were so profound that despite our best efforts, we have been unable to repair a fractured trust with some survivors. To those survivors for whom a lack of trust and confidence in policing persists, or to anyone who has suffered abuse in the past but has yet to reach out, I want to send a very clear message today. The passage of time is no barrier to justice. If you are a survivor, when you are ready, we will listen and we will act as you want us to do. As the HMIC report makes clear, GMP's approach to investigating non-recent cases is also today an exemplar of best practice. Our approach is to treat group-based grooming and abuse as serious and organised crime. This is why we established specialist teams, which are better resourced today than anywhere in the UK, precisely to take on these complex investigations. We are actively working with dozens of survivors who have put their faith in us, and we are achieving justice for them. In Rochdale alone, for example, as part of Operation Lytton to date, we have seen 37 suspects charged, 12 of whom have already been convicted, and the remaining 25 suspects are to stand trial over the coming months. Investigations into other suspected offenders continue to be pursued with real vigour. GMP remains focused on listening to survivors and advancing our effective practice still further. We owe it both to those abused in the past and to our children of today in sustaining this most pressing of priorities. And I give my commitment to do just that. Our skilled investigators combine compassion, decency, and professionalism with a ruthless pursuit of those guilty of such wicked abuse. To those who are responsible for such repugnant crimes, as will now be abundantly apparent to them, we will continue to pursue you relentlessly. Thank you.